Hello, everyone. My name is Aidan Kearny. We live? Just making sure? Cool. All right. My name is Aidan Kearny. I'm the founder of TurtleBoy Sports, the most censored blog on the internet. I am the author of I Am TurtleBoy, the Amazon #1 bestseller in the category of censorship. I'd like to thank John Paul for giving me this opportunity to speak to you wonderful people today and tell you my story. Oh, am I not speaking into the mic?
That one right there.
How about now? There we go. All right. I thought that's what this was.
Oh, that's for Price is Right later.
Oh, Price is Right. Okay, that's better. Yeah, so I'm here to tell you the story about what happens when you try to express your First Amendment rights in America in the alleged land of the free. TurtleBoy has millions of monthly readers and global reach. Our blogs exposing corruption has led to the resignation of the 4 highest-ranking members of the Massachusetts State Police, the admission that they employed a former drug dealer who they themselves previously investigated, and it's gotten drug addicts to stay clean for fear of being shamed on our website. We have weaponized public shaming and used it as a deterrent to ratchet public behavior. Free speech is the foundation of our democracy. In order for it to work, we need to be able to exchange public ideas in the public square. These competing ideas must be challenged in order for us to grow intellectually and create a well-informed electorate. But our ability to exchange ideas has been threatened in many ways. Let me tell you a little bit about how Aidan Kearny became TurtleBoy first. After graduating from an urban public high school, I went to UMass Amherst where I majored in history. The only thing I ever wanted to do in my life was be a public high school teacher. For the first 2 years after I graduated, I taught at an alternative school in Worcester for kids who have been kicked out of public schools. I was told that I was, quote, mad whack, unquote, about 50 times a day by kids who would go on to appear on my blog 10 years later. After 2 years of that, since it wasn't really a teaching job so much as organized babysitting, I got an 11th grade teaching job at Shepherd Hill Regional in Dudley. It was there that it was a complete culture shock because kids actually did what I told them to do for the most part. I love teaching history, but a lot of kids don't like history because to them it's just names, dates, and timelines. This is the MCAS generation. The only thing that matters in the MCAS generation is improving test results so that principals can become superintendents and superintendents can get on accreditation boards. The idea of actual learning and formulating opinions is something so foreign to these kids, and I found that out the hard way. So this is what I set out to do as a teacher. I wanted kids to become engaged civically, and I wanted them to know why this is important. I didn't want them to tell me why the United States entered World War I. I wanted them to tell me, was it a good idea to do so? I was known as the hard teacher. I was the one you did not want to see on your schedule in August if you had plans to cruise through junior year. I was also known as the guy who would challenge you, get the most out of you, hold you accountable, and more importantly, you'd learn history in my class and become a well-informed citizen. Unfortunately, this is not the kind of teacher that is valued in modern public schools. The only thing that high school principals care about today is keeping parents happy. They don't like teachers who challenge students because then the students whine to their therapists / guidance counselors that you're being unfair or the class is too hard. They like teachers who pass everybody because they don't cause any controversy. But that's not why I signed up for the job. The career hack principal had it in for me from the beginning, and she was actively working on a case to terminate me. I had strong opinions on politics, but I kept them from students. It's unprofessional for teachers of either creed to force their politics on kids. I was proud at the end of the year that none of them could figure out which side I favored. My job was to teach them facts and encourage them to develop their own opinions about those facts. In school, I kept my opinions to myself, but on Facebook, I was the exact opposite. I refused to self-censor. I was the guy on your Facebook feed who never shut up. My opinions were apparently too strong because I was called down to the principal's office in 2011 and given a verbal warning because I had made a post about the recent incident involving Patriots receiver Julian Edelman at a nightclub in which he allegedly grabbed a woman. I had the outrageous idea that we should wait for more facts to come out before determining guilt. For this, I was told that this was offensive, and I was warned, don't do that again. It was then that I realized that we don't really have free speech in this country. If we have to choose between our job, our livelihood, and voicing opinions, then we're not really free, are we? If the alternative is to starve to death, then we're not free. By 2013, I'd become disillusioned with teaching. I loved doing it. I loved the practice of teaching, but I hated the nonsense that came along with it, with principles and reform and blah, 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 blah. I wanted to be a journalist, so I started a blog called AidanFromWorcester.com. I talked about news, politics, and offered up usual, blunt, honest commentary on stuff. The blog did grow kind of fast, but it got me in trouble quickly. In late 2013, I was called down to the principal's office and notified that I was being put on 5 days unpaid suspension because of a blog that I had published before Christmas vacation. The infraction? Writing a blog about Miami Dolphins lineman Richie Incognito's alleged bullying of teammate Jonathan Martin. My take on it was simple. 300-pound men don't get bullied. Bullying is the most overused word in the English language. We are teaching kids how to be victims instead of teaching them how to stand up for themselves. I was told that this went against the school's policy on bullying, and as a result, I was given a 5-day suspension. It was patently absurd, and luckily I had the union there and an attorney to help me out. However, the lawyer did want to fight it, but when the school countered with 3 days unpaid, I took it because 2 days of paid labor is a lot for a teacher, especially around the holidays. I regret that to this day. They killed AidanFromWorcester.com, but they hadn't killed my yearning for free speech. I was on thin ice, and any more quote-unquote wrong opinions on social media would result in termination. But I couldn't stop blogging. And I knew that if I were to start a new blog, it had to be anonymous this time. That's when someone said the two most beautiful words I've ever heard. TurtleBoy Sports. There's a statue in downtown Worcester of a boy who seems to be doing ungodly things to a poor, screaming turtle. Google it, I dare you. This was the perfect name for an anonymous blog. I set out to create a platform where not only me, but other people could voice their opinions anonymously without fear of losing their job. And it grew exponentially. TurtleBoy made its mark by doing what the media would not dream of doing, reporting real news. I remember there was an incident in 2014 after the Bruins lost to the Canadiens in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup first-round series. And it was reported by the Boston Globe and ESPN that 28,000 racist Boston fans had tweeted out racist things about the Canadian star black player, PK Subban. TurtleBoy decided that he was going to look into this and find the truth because that's what we do. As it turned out, there were not 28,000 people, there was 8 people, and 28,000 people retweeting them in order to publicly shame them for their racism. But the media doesn't care about that. The Boston Globe doesn't care about that because they're too busy covering up rampant sexual harassment that they've coddled at the Boston Globe since the beginning of time. I was doing all of this while teaching history, and by October of 2014, I had thousands of followers on Facebook and Twitter, more email subscribers, and more people going to the website every day. It was around that time, on Columbus Day weekend. Every year, my friends and I would travel to Buffalo to watch the Patriots murder the Buffalo Bills in cold blood. We are loud and obnoxious fans when we go, and I actually love the way the Buffalo fans treat us. They call us words that simply aren't socially acceptable in New England anymore, and I can't say I blame them. They're a blue-collar people who once lost 4 straight Super Bowls, and every year, like clockwork, this pretty boy Uggs model comes to town and crushes their souls. That year I decided I was going to film when I was there and post it on TurtleBoy so the world could enjoy it too. During the game, we stood up and we cheered after every single completed pass. Bills fans rightfully called us things that would make AOC file hate crime legislation. I filmed them and put the videos up on the blog, and it went viral in Buffalo since it made Buffalo fans look like the savages that they are. Everyone in that city was trying to find out who TurtleBoy was. Unfortunately, a guy up there with his own blog did find out who I was and ended up doxing me. But his blog also made up blatant lies about me sexually harassing and assaulting a woman at the game in front of the entire stadium. None of it was true, of course, and the whole thing sounded like a bad porno movie. Had I done what was actually alleged, it would have been filmed, I would have been arrested, it would have been on the news. But the truth no longer matters to people, and these blatant lies about me sexually harassing a strange woman started to carry around. The blog was shared thousands of times. They listed my employees' name, phone number, and email contacts. The school became inundated. I was CC'd on emails accusing the school of hiring an alleged sexual predator. That is why I empathized so much with Justice Kavanaugh last September, because I understand what he's been through. I've been in his shoes. I've never identified with someone as much as I did for that man. It's pure evil when that happens. So, I was a nervous wreck. Fox 25 News was outside of the school on Tuesday looking for comment, and I still hadn't been called down to the office. Then the death threats began. I began getting them on my email, and I had to alert the Dudley police. Meanwhile, I was just waiting for students to find it on Twitter. I was a well-respected teacher, and this was going to destroy my reputation and my career. It happened on a Tuesday, before the last period of the day. The librarian had printed out copies of this defamatory blog and given it to several kids. A Dudley cop came to my class and brought me to the office where the principal, vice principal, and superintendent were all waiting. The school had been bombarded with threats and media inquiries. My RateMyTeacher.com profile was filled with one-star reviews calling me a pedophile. My life was over, and all because I had the audacity to speak freely on the internet. The school was initially supportive. They understood it wasn't real and that told me I could stay home and get paid. So I took them up on this because there was no way I was facing those kids. I saw the things that they were saying about me on Twitter. It was pretty terrible. So I realized the union was going to fight for me. And we knew they could not fire me over the fake news. But the damage was done at this point. I couldn't face those kids again. So when they offered me a full year's salary to walk away quietly, I took it. At this point on, I was all in on TurtleBoy. For the first time in my life, I felt free. I didn't have a boss or anyone telling me what I can't say. The blog grew larger and larger by the day. So did my freelancing staff as we exposed fraud, corruption, and criminality. We exposed local activists running a fraudulent nonprofit out of Worcester, stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars for the taxpayers. We promoted candidates for political office in Worcester elections, and they all won. It was a revolution in media, and it was growing quickly. But I had no idea the extent that people would go in order to silence me. It began with, quote, boycotts. They're not really boycotts, though. Let's call them what they are, harassment campaigns. When David Hogg tells a mob to harass Ace Hardware for advertising on Tucker Carlson, that's not a boycott, it's harassment. Rosa Parks boycotted the Montgomery buses by not riding them. David Hogg wasn't planning on buying plywood at Ace Hardware in the first place. The first boycott came in 2015. My advertisers were getting bombarded with emails and phone calls from activists we had exposed, condemning them for supporting racism, sexism, transphobia, and blah, 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 blah. These words mean nothing to me because they mean nothing to the people who use them so freely. It's just what leftists say when they've lost an argument. But advertisers don't want to deal with that, or the negative one-star reviews that come along with it. So, a lot of them began to leave TurtleBoy, and the goal of this mob was clear. Censor TurtleBoy by taking away his ability to make a living. And if we live in a country where we get to choose between making a living and speaking freely, then we are not truly free. I also get death threats on a semi-regular basis because they think it's going to scare me into self-censorship. But they've failed. 2 weeks ago, Someone sent me text messages listing the names of all my family members, addresses, pictures, my social security number, and other heinous things that I will not mention. I used to get scared earlier on when I get death threats like this, but I quickly realized that the only power that these cowards have is the ability to frighten you with words. Once you have stripped them of that power, they realize there is nothing they can do to stop you. I've also been sued almost a dozen times for libel in the last 2 years, and I'm proud to say that I'm undefeated in court. Number one. People who are featured on TurtleBoy find out the hard way that the First Amendment allows us to opine that 48-year-old men with frosted tips look like the love child of Eminem and Rand Paul. Every lawsuit I've ever been involved in has been frivolous. I'm currently being sued by 3 people, including one woman who we named Failure Swift. After blogging about this scam artist, after she was kicked out of a Warwick hospital and filmed the entire thing, she sued my company, not because of anything that I said was untrue, but because, and I quote, the plaintiff's feelings were hurt. And she claimed people were harassing her, which I did not ask anyone to do. She was represented by a Democratic state representative out of Cranston, and the judge was a Democratic-appointed judge. This judge issued a temporary restraining order against me, telling me to take down blogs about Failure Swift. This is a gross First Amendment violation, and I contacted the ACLU, who has since taken up my case. While I was sitting back there, the Providence Journal just published an article about it. I'm also being sued by an overly litigious millionaire who has sued over 10 people and is represented by a famous attorney who helped Aaron Hernandez beat a murder charge. The fact that these lawsuits have no merit doesn't change the fact that I have to pay for counsel every time to get them dismissed. One case alone has cost me $15,000 and counting, and when I win, I will not get that money back. This is how they plan to bankrupt and censor me. Make it so that I can't afford to retain counsel and get default judgment against me with meritless lawsuits. But the most Orwellian form of censorship is when it comes from tech companies in San Francisco. Make no doubt about it. These are monopolies, and they've privatized the public square. Facebook has over 2.5 billion users. It is no longer optional for media outlets like TurtleBoy to not use this service. You have to go where the people are. And Facebook has a monopoly on people. Likewise, Twitter has a monopoly on politicians and the media. Every single governor, member of Congress, in the executive branch has a Twitter account. The President of the United States makes policy announcements using their platform instead of a press conference. Every journalist and activist is on there as well. A growing company of mine has no choice but to be there with them. Jack Dorsey himself said, testifying in front of Congress, that Twitter is the public square. Federal judges have ruled that elected officials cannot block you, but yet they can block us from using their platform. Explain to me how that makes sense. Boy, I like Facebook and Twitter. They were essential to the growth of my business. They invited me in. They urged me to pay for boosted posts, create a business page, and I did, and the results were fantastic. By 2017, TurtleBoy had 112,000 Facebook followers and 15,000 on Twitter. Businesses like mine needed to be on social media. I was followed by people like Michelle Malkin, Kurt Schilling, Cassandra Fairbanks, multiple reporters and politicians. We were adding over 3,000 new Turtle Riders every week. We got hundreds of comments on every post. TurtleBoy was the hottest site on social media. Then in November of 2017, it all came to an end. My Twitter account was deactivated and no reason was given. I created a new handle, @RealTurtleBoy, built it up to 5,000 followers. Then that was taken down 2 months later. So I made another one, @TurtleBoy News, built it up to 10,000. And then in August of 2018, it was taken down. So I just decided, let's make another one. Except this time, it was taken down within minutes. Twitter had blacklisted my IP address. My wife, who has nothing to do with my business, had her Twitter account taken down as well. My kids will never be able to use Twitter until they move out of my house. I had people create accounts for me, thinking that they were tracking where the account was created from. And then they would give me the login information, and I would sign in, and it would still get taken down. If anyone in this room came to my house, logged into their Twitter account using my Wi-Fi, you would be banned from Twitter for life. On November 27th, we published a blog about a Black Lives Matter activist named Dee Dee Delgado. Dee Dee has an army of white women who follow her around on social media, and she forces them to pay her money every week in what she calls Reparations Friday. I'm not kidding either. Check it out. She brainwashes them with white guilt and uses their money to go on exotic vacations. We exposed her like we've done to thousands of other people on social media. But Dee Dee's army was determined to take us off of Facebook. And on November 28th, my Facebook page was unpublished after an organized mob of thousands of social justice warriors spent the day mass reporting us for pornography, hate speech, violence, you name it. It doesn't matter what they report you for. All that matters is the number of times you report. The post that was officially taken down was our profile picture, which was a Norman Rockwell painting of Thanksgiving in which TurtleBoy was superimposed as the turkey. Oi. So, my attorney sent them a demand letter after we appealed it, and they said there's nothing wrong with this, but it could offend someone. So, my lawyer sent an attorney to Facebook demanding that they restore my account. They ignored us because that's what unregulated monopolies who are above the law can do. So I tried to rebuild. By the end of the week, I had a new page called The Lost Boys of Turtle with over 25,000 followers. Then it was taken down by a mob. After that, it was TurtleBoy Refugees, TurtleBoy Safe Space, TurtleBoy Fallout Shelter, TurtleBoy Sports Returns, and TurtleBoy Sports Forever taken down. I even tried TurtleBoy Sports Black Lives Matter, hoping that would protect me. But they figured that one out too. I had pages taken down for saying such egregious things as peace, love, and happiness to all on Christmas. And we like to help people who are in need. It's the right thing to do. I'm not kidding. Market Watch has done a story about it. We've had pages. I'll never stop fighting for the principles that this country was founded on. Thank you for your time.